Hey everyone, just a quick technical recaps on some of the currency majors here. Let's take a look at the Aussie USD first. Now, for the past 2 weeks, we've been talking about a potential return towards 64 cents. We basically achieved that. It actually went down a little bit lower than 64 cents, but taking a look at the daily close yesterday, it actually closes slightly above that 64 cents. So for those that were short on the Aussie USD, I think it is about time to consider that the pair is currently at a critical support level and a very technical one itself at 64 cents. Now, obviously, this is going to be at the lower end of the range here, and today's Friday. We have that close below 64 cents for the week, then this is obviously something to talk about and something to discuss and consider next week. But for now, in terms of the intraday movement, this is likely going to be well supported at 64 cents. So if you guys are thinking on whether or not you should hold your positions over the weekend, it would be a consideration to take that. This is currently at support 2 on the weekly pivot, which also coincides at 64 cents. I think we're looking at that lower end of the range just by itself. There could be that potential, price could bounce off 64 cents, really depending on what the market sentiment is likely going to be for Friday. Not expecting too much, but it is, it could still be a possibility for the Aussie USD, considering how the Aussie USD typically kind of works within a certain range, and we are looking at that lower end of the range here. We've got 68 cents obviously at the very top, 66 cents and 67 cents kind of in the middle. We're at that 64 cents, so it would be a good consideration to maybe get out of any short positions. But if you're thinking on whether or not you should be opening a new positions on Friday at around 64 cents, I would say, probably wait for Monday until we get a much better picture on how the week is going to close for the Aussie USD. Now, the Euro USD, we did mention the potential for this one to remain in a range bound market condition and would potentially transition back below the Ishimoku cloud. That's basically what we got for the Euro USD. Price is still well supported by 1.0850 and 1.09 range. It's currently trapped within that range. We're not really anticipating crazy movement on the Euro USD at this point in time. It is also where the weekly support 1 and support 2 is currently located. So we're looking at that 1.0850 to 1.09 as kind of a no trade zone. It's just too small of a range to consider an intraday trade on the Euro USD, and considering the transition that has happened with the Euro USD below the Ishimoku cloud, there could be a potential for this one to climb up a little bit higher and potentially retest 1.0950 before any further downtrend continuation could happen for the Euro USD. We're also considering the condition in terms of the sentiments here, the momentum from the stochastics that is obviously well below 20. So any sustained break below 1.0850 that could trigger further losses on the Euro USD. But if you're thinking on whether you should buy or sell the Euro USD this Friday, that would be some consideration to take, because if you're thinking of going short, the risk that you're going to take is that you're likely going to have a stop loss at about 1.0650 ish. So 1.1060, it is a considerable risk to take. And also, if you're thinking of maybe just buying it at around this support level 1.0850, 1.09, we just don't have enough evidence to support that the price is actually going to bounce off this key level at time of recording. Now, the video I posted out yesterday, it was a little bit of a discussion on the pound USD. This one here is a little bit unique. Let me just dive in deeper on the pound USD by itself. So we have the inflation dropping down from the UK. Obviously, that would instigate the potential that the Bank of England might need to kind of maybe pull back down a little bit, or slow down a little bit in terms of the interest rate hikes. But consider this. The inflation rate in the UK is still pretty high. So the Bank of England still needs to do a lot more in terms of, taming inflation from that side. So I think that's basically what the market sentiment is for the sterling. And if you take a look at the pound USD, how it actually kind of bounces off from that 1.27 level, it is a very significant consideration here. Because if we saw that drop that happened over the weekend, over this week, and if we consider where 1.27 is located, we are actually still above that 1.27 level at the end of the week here. So with the potential transition, unlike the Euro USD, where it would just transitioned past the Ichimoku cloud. What happened here is that it actually trades within the Ichimoku cloud, within that very thin band, and actually still maintains position inside the Ichimoku cloud. So if the wick closes slightly higher than 1.27, we would still be in that Ichimoku cloud and would actually not be a transition below the Ichimoku cloud for the pound USD. So the pound USD is a little bit unique. It is actually still pretty strong. I think we're still looking at demands in the market here. Obviously, not just pound USD, the sterling yen is also lifting it up a little bit, although we saw the yen gains a little bit on the back of stronger inflation numbers in Japan. But the core inflation does fall down a little bit, so there's always that consideration that the Bank of Japan might not need to do anything for the inflation to fall back down. But obviously, it's very interesting to take a look at the pound USD, and for as long as we maintain the position above 1.27, it's actually really hard to call a potential shift in trend for the pound USD. I think this one here is actually still very well supported. I think we're still looking at a lot of buyers coming in at 1.27. Now, if we take a look at the hourly time frame, sorry about the lines here, but we are looking at that drop just now from the back of a weaker retail sales number in the UK that was just released on Friday. But you can see here that price, even with all that bad news happening in the UK, we actually don't have that drop below 1.27. The drop in retail sales is pretty significant. It was from 0.6 to negative 1.2%. Expectation is only negative 0.5%. So we're looking at a huge miss in retail sales month on month. Year on year also dropped from negative 1.6 to 3.2%, which is pretty much doubling the losses there. And take a look at the price action here. We just dipped below the Ichimoku cloud, but still above 1.27. The stochastic is a little bit flat. The RSI is actually still picking up momentum. So what we're looking at after post UK retail sales number, which is bad, we're still looking at demands from sterling here. So very well supported sterling. And this would be a consideration to take that there's still demand for sterling, and it might actually move separate. It might actually not move in a positive correlation with the EURUSD. I think we're looking at a little bit of a stronger sterling at this point in time. Now, obviously, let's take a look at the euro pound here as a comparison as a currency cross. The euro pound itself is actually a lot weaker compared to the euro is actually a lot weaker compared to the sterling. So obviously that's going to be a consideration to take. This one here, obviously it's sideways. You can see the range here on the euro pound, but we are looking at the euro being weaker than the pound at this point in time. Now the dollar Japanese yen, there are a few considerations with the dollar Japanese yen here. Obviously, fear of intervention is one that really kind of shakes up the market a little bit as price kind of continuously grind above that 145 level. We have reached the resistance one on the weekly pivot. We have reached 146, so we're looking at a little bit of profit taking happening on the dollar Japanese yen, but in no way this is an indication that the Japanese yen is going to get stronger, the dollar is going to get pressured lower. We're just not looking at that scenario at this point in time, especially if the week closes above 145, because that would still be a close higher than the previous week on the dollar Japanese yen. So if we take a look at the weekly chart here, the previous week kind of kept out at 145. So we are looking at price above that high on the dollar Japanese yen. So we might actually still see potential for this one to move towards 147 in the near future for the dollar Japanese yen. Taking a look at the intraday demand for the dollar Japanese yen, obviously we have pulled back a little bit on the dollar Japanese yen here back towards 145.25. So we are very close to that support level. Support 2 on the daily pivot on Friday is actually located at 145. So we do anticipate a potential buyback around 145 for carry traders. But yeah, dollar Japanese yen, we're not looking at any signs of significant weakness as at that point of recording. This is more of a short-term technical correction happening on the dollar Japanese yen. Obviously, the if you're trading the yen crosses, the sterling yen was kind of the major mover in the market because we have actually seen this gained significantly. For this week itself, the range is actually from 183.45 to about 186.47. So that's around 300 pips. Obviously, this is the biggest mover, and this is basically something that's actually supporting the sterling as well. But yeah, sterling is definitely something to look out for if you are able to find that opportunity on sterling yen. Any short-term pullbacks, I think we're still looking at demands in the market. For now, I think we should be looking at 184 as potentially providing a floor on the sterling yen. All right, so that's pretty much it. Just a recap on some of the technical levels. We are approaching key technical levels on some of the major pairs like the EURUSD and the AUDUSD. Pound USD is still very well maintained by that key psychological level at 1.27. The dollar Japanese yen, obviously, we're still looking at a little bit of a sell-off, but anticipating 145 to become kind of an intraday floor for the dollar Japanese yen. Just to wrap up this week. So good luck to your trades and have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday.